Ryan here at Life Action Roleplay, and I'm in the middle of editing some things for Blank Slate right now. I try to do a new intro video for each episode. But before I forget, I want to thank our Patreon subscribers, especially Talon Hack Bowler, Twin Mask, Aaron Ludlow, Treasure Kalafa, Sam Sanchez, and Vivid Vivka. Thank you so much for all of your support that enable Life Action Roleplay to be able to produce these podcasts. Just to let you know, I will be at the upcoming KublaCon May 24th to May 26th in San Francisco, and I will be recording a few podcasts there. If you are in the area, I might be able to interview you, so please come find me. No guarantees, but I am looking for a few people to interview while over at KublaCon. At some point, Sin, Kai, and I will continue to record things together. It's just that right now, Sin is in the middle of doing some shows. As you may know, Sirens is coming back, and she's also doing LA by Night. And Kai continues to run DR NorCal, and I have my show, Blank Slate, as well as a vampire LARP that I also run, called Hollywood Forever. And so things have been pretty busy among us, but we're very fortunate to still have your continued support while we pursue making content in these other realms and then come back to the podcast. So this particular podcast was one that was just very impromptu and taken while a few of us were driving to Kai's game in DR NorCal. So I thought we had some time to kill. Let's record something and see if it's interesting. It turned out to be a very deep podcast about personal exploration in LARP, including examining how each of us tick and how we bring that to a LARP. And just a little disclaimer, this was taken while we were driving, so you're going to hear a lot of background noise, but because we're inside of a vehicle, it has been minimized. So without further ado, playback. Welcome to Life Action Roleplay with Ryan Omega. I am taking a ride up to Kai's game, Dystopia Rising NorCal, and I'm with some friends. If you could introduce yourselves, please, starting with Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor Frost. I'm driving us up. I play Dystopia Rising, and I play Twin Mask. I'm an advocate at Twin Mask, and I am a guide at Dystopia Rising.
All right, go Shell.
Hello, my name is Shea Gibbons. I am a player at both Dystopia Rising NorCal and Twin Mask. I'm also a guide at Dystopia Rising NorCal.
All right, go Alex.
Hello, I'm Aleks Thurman. I predictably also play at Twin Mask and Dystopia Rising, although I am not staff for either of those games.
All right. And, normally I would say, what are we drinking? So are we at least hydrating?
Yeah, I'm drinking water out of a genre-rusted can, so...
Describe the can to the audience.
The can is a discarded Asahi 2-liter bottle with rust painted on it using cinnamon, so it smells delightful, and there's glowing green stuff oozing out of it because the person who gave it to me definitely has radiation poisoning.
Alex, what are you drinking out of?
I'm drinking out of the exact same thing because I made them.
Yay!
Lots of water. Lots of water.
Taylor.
Yeah, I have a 1 gallon jug thermos that is genred as well that I just drink a ridiculous amount of water out of.
Right, and I'm boring because I have an AM/PM 16 ounce, because I can't read, 16 ounce coffee because I need to stay awake because I have a penchant of falling asleep.
Well, that's not boring. We all have water, and you're coming out here with caffeine.
Caffeine, because I'm a host. So, shout-outs. Do you have any shout-outs that you want to give to the people out on the podcast world? Taylor.
Yeah, I'm an advocate at Twin Mask, and I run some, I like write and run some story mods there as well. And this last game, I had a mod go out that it went out 2 different times in the night. And the first time it went out, it engaged with some newer players and like 1 veteran player. And I don't know everybody's names, so I'm not going to give specific names. But if you hear this, it was the ones that found the dead body in the graveyard. I spent about almost 2 hours with them as in my staff role basically, and like following them around, and like they were role playing, like investigating this body and doing all of these really cool things. And they really bought into the story super hard, and it kind of validated all of the time that I put in out of game on this mod. And it was super cool to see them so invested in it. And so I really appreciate how invested they were in the story and the effort that they put in. And it made me feel good that I was doing something cool for them.
Alex.
Something I did not think about beforehand.
If you'd like, I have mine.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Taylor, you just inspired me on mine. Because my shout out is to a new player at Dystopia Rising NorCal. They NPC'd just this past game, but I was full-time NPCing as well, so I was mainly doing staff stuff, leading mods, and this person went out on the Slug Merchant mod with me, which usually...
This is nice.
Yeah, the Slug Merchant mod started out relatively mundane until I got my grubby hands all over it, and now if you ask people from Dystopia Rising NorCal about the Slug Merchant mod, they will excitedly tell you. But this new player came out with me. I told him, like, I'm going out as a very eccentric merchant that sells slugs, and his face lit up, and he was like, please let me go with you. And we put slugs all over his face, and he decided to name his character Lump, and it was just all around a fantastic time. He went full on, like, weird slug merchant, and just... I just know that this is like the heir to the Slug Merchant mod. Like, I know that it's left in good hands, that Lump can go out there and just work his magic. So this one's for you, Lump. Thank you. That is my shout out.
All right, I guess it's my turn now. I guess my shout out would be to this past Twin Mask game. I'm part of a culture called the Trahazi, who have recently experienced kind of a boom in population. I'm still a fairly new player, but I've been trying really hard to engage everyone in new plots, and I really want to shout out to kind of all of my Trahazi family, who've been really embracing kind of all the stuff I'm trying to bring in. I really appreciate it, especially Alexis and Aaron, who have both been wonderfully embracing my new priest character.
Nice. So for me, a few different ones. A shout out to my friend Wes. Like, ever since being on Blank Slate, like, he's just been super enthusiastic, and also not just in Blank Slate, but in Twin Mask. He's been like he and I end up talking a lot about our characters, and even the last game up, he gave me a ride over to Twin Mask, and we were talking about... Okay, I realize I can't talk about that because that's all FOIG. But at one point, we were just recording our antics on Facebook, so that video is up if you want to see Gunther
kidnap the storyteller on the way to Twin Mask. that is a thing. For Blank Slate, I want to give out a shout to... Give out a shout? Yeah, that's right. Give out a shout. Thinking about grammar right now. To my friend Landon for being on the show awkwardly seducing Gunther. And apparently they have plans because the internet really, really likes awkward seductions. And they're very... And I think the fans are down for it. And for Twin Mask, I want to give a roleplay shout out to Nobo, who played Bam. It was really super cool and interesting to hear why Bam would have murdered a Unity representative in broad daylight. That's not really void because that actually happened in front of everybody. But just listening to how impassioned she was about how broken the system is in front of me, and I'm like, it's very hard for me to disagree. And this is the most we've ever roleplayed together, and it was amazing. And things are now going to happen in the next upcoming games, and I'm excited to see where this all goes.
And with that scene too, like, I mean, like, not to pile on, nobody knows how much I like them, but they like committed so hard that like when the whole like trial and that kind of like they were trying to like investigate like why this happened and everything, they talked to the Unity representative's like body and like to find out if it was an honor duel. Mikey Strange was playing the Unity rep and said that like if Bambi eats like his heart and like his face and stuff or whatever, then at that point he'll agree that it was an honor duel. And so they end up like pulling out this giant jello heart, and Nobo as Bambi just straight up eats this giant jello heart off of Michael Strange's chest and like fully commits, eats the entire heart, like as like, you know, dry heaving from eating that much jello, or not even dry heaving at that point, like literally gagging from eating that much jello.
Ooh, that was intense.
But like fully committed to it. Like apparently the scene was incredible for like anybody watching, and like yeah, just I love how hard Nobo commits. Like,
damn.
Yeah. There's a bunch of pictures of it on Facebook and stuff.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll segue into a topic about commitment to personal exploration.
Yes.
I segued that hard.
Yeah, I see what you did there. I see what you did.
Well, now we're here. We're now here in personal exploration in LARP land.
Yeah, personal exploration in LARP land. Because one thing that's very interesting that I have noticed in all the years I have LARPed is how much role-playing different characters in environments can lead to, as in Alex's term, wish fulfillment, and to some extent. But not just exploring like different parts of you, but like things that you can be or things that you've always wanted to see can happen. Like, what if I played a more ambitious character? What if I played a more shy character? What if I played a sexier character? And being able to roleplay different personas that you would not get to roleplay otherwise, because in a lot of gaming, you don't necessarily... I mean, like, some people do want to play just themselves in a different world, but some of us want to try different things that we don't normally tend to try.
And I really like the LARP environment for that, because it's a simulated environment where that sort of exploration of embodying a different character, something that you don't normally express or embody, is like fully embraced and accepted. So you can just go sort of roll with that and figure out if those are the shoes that you can fit. Mm-hmm. if that's something that you really like I'm a very shy person and I'm very introverted. So like finding characters that maybe are more like brash and outgoing was difficult for me at first, but like that in itself, like that exploration kind of helped me learn a little bit about myself and how to speak up for myself. Like it, as I mentioned before, as we were talking, it's kind of like a sort of positive bleed of like being in that simulated environment and taking something from there. If that makes any sense, I'm just sort of rambling at you here, Ryan.
No, you make absolute sense, and said the term positive bleed, which actually I've been experiencing a lot more with my characters, more so than negative bleed. And I realize bleed is a huge concept in our community, but for me, I've learned to become a better producer, almost a better politician, as a result of having played LARP characters that had that focus. Like, not just as the Archduke for Twin Mask, but at one point I was a Camarilla lawyer in playing Vampire. I was a Bruja Camarilla lawyer, and I had to argue why this one Venture Prince that killed my sire needed to be put to death. And after 2 or 3 years, I won. His ashes were delivered to me. God. But man, it was an uphill battle for that to happen.
That's, I guess, my follow-up question was like, are there specific examples where you noticed like something that you wanted to try out in LARP? If you don't want to give specific examples, that's fine. But like, are there examples of like where you wanted to try out something in a LARP first to see like how it like fit you before you then like decided to adopt it, whether it was like a personality trait or like, you know, I want to try to be a little less like, or a little more outgoing, or like I want to be a little less of like less reserved or whatever, or it's like, or even like try out like an identity. Like, do you have examples of that to where LARP did help you discover something about yourself?
Would you like me to go, or would you like to go, Alex?
I guess I'll go. I kind of have that with my Twin Mask character, Camellia. Even in previous LARPs in Dystopia Rising, and kind of as an out-of-game trait, too, I've kind of noticed myself, in general, I kind of stick to the people that I know. I find it not difficult, but I just find it not as a high priority to kind of branch out and meet other people and things like that and build those kinds of connections. But for Camellia, I specifically kind of wrote into the character, this is someone who will walk up to any person, regardless of station, regardless of whether or not I know their name, and just like introduce themselves and have this complete confidence of, yes, I am like the coolest person I know, so you should think so too. And it is actually something that's kind of helped, because before I started playing Camellia, like I said, I kind of stick to the people that I know, but since that, I've been actually branching out a lot more and meeting a lot of new people, sometimes as a consequence of that kind of roleplay, but sometimes just because, and it has been a very positive experience.
I was thinking of actually two separate things that I have kind of taken from my main character that I play at Dystopia Rising, and that is Pagu.
Pagu!
a crabby salt-wise. Not necessarily actually crabby. Pagu actually wears a giant shell and basically behaves like a hermit crab.
Not behaviorally crabby, but literally crabby.
Literally crabby. But when I first started LARP, I was actually going through a period of time in my life in which I was having trouble being in public spaces and being around people. So LARP was actually like a big deal for me because I was going to this event with so many people. But Pagu was first built to be. They ended up coming out like an exaggeration of my like shyness and my kind of like skittishness around people. And Pagu's sort of arc in like overcoming that and finding independence was also something that like I was processing simultaneously out of game. So being able to kind of like have that low as Pagu of being like afraid of people, and then like learning to like interact with society and like getting into like leadership roles and eventually becoming like leading a faction. I can see like certain things that I actually like pulled from those experiences in game to help me out in real life, just in terms of like mediation and leadership, which I didn't really expect coming from this character, this very strange character. And then also another thing that I didn't expect was Pagu actually helped me learn more about my gender identity. I am non-binary, and the Saltwise strain in Dystopia Rising is basically described as that. They don't really have a gender, but they can present however they want. So that actually started me experimenting with like different pronouns and realizing that like that is actually something that's far more comfortable for me and gives me a sense of like euphoria in terms of gender. So that unexpectedly was something else that I discovered about myself just through being able to explore in character as this role.
Nice. I know that over the past like 4 to 6 months, I have been, and I know it's going to sound weird, but I also have been just exploring like those gender spaces. Turns out I am very firmly he, him. But I was always trying to, like, in roleplay scenarios, you know, would I be able to play a character that would be like a they, them? And there are like a couple of characters in some role-playing games where I attempted to play they, them, and a lot of it was me asking those who were non-binary, hey, what do I need to be aware of? Oddly enough, it actually led me to realize that the reason why I'm very firmly he, him was because when I was much younger, as a teenager, I was very, very high-pitched, and I was often misgendered, and it kind of took a toll on me that I needed to be more masculine. And I didn't realize that until like a few months ago, but I also realized after a while that that was kind of okay in the sense of like, okay, so for me, like going off topic a little bit, in the early 2000s, like I knew that I was in the closet but wanted to come out, and LARP actually enabled me to come out because I got to play characters that were gay and that were interested in men. Before then, I had no reason to leave the closet. But also in the early 2000s, there was no real distinction between people who were, like, males who were gay and people who were trans. And that sounds weird, but like if you were a female that presented as male, it was logical that you would be attracted to females. At least back then, we didn't have the separation of sexuality and gender that we do now. But back then, as a gay guy, like, that was never taught to me, so I had to learn that that was not what it was. Kind of showing that just because you're on the spectrum, we still kind of have to learn from each other that there are those differences. I didn't know that until 10 years ago. And I think I'm still learning that difference between gender and sexuality, and sometimes I'll misstep as a result of that exploration.
And one of the things I wanted to just sort of like point out as you were talking, like, it's one of the things that I've been seeing around, and I definitely agree with, is just like it is totally okay if you like explore and you find out during your explorations, like, you know, like I found out I'm cis.
Yeah.
So like, and I forgot the second thing that I was going to say, because this sort of thing happens to me often, where I will be talking and then I'll be like, yes, I have one other thing to say, and then it ran away while I was talking. So I'll come back to that if I recall.
Absolutely.
But yes, I remember. Okay, it came back. This learning more about identities was also something, like, as I said, I explored myself through Pagu, but also just the environment of a LARP where you're in a simulated environment where, like, you're safe to do this. Like, other people are exploring as well, and I am learning from those people. Like you were saying, the things that you have learned since the early 2000s, like basically like by a LARP, like being taught these things through like other people's exploration. It's I think it's pretty interesting, because I never would have explored these things had I not found a community where it was safe for me to do so, and a community in which I could observe that is a thing that I was allowed to do as well. That was I attempted a roundabout way of saying that. I got into a ramble there, but we made it, folks.
We made it.
But yes, it's not just, of course, it's not just identity that you're exploring. Like we started out with, it's also like personality traits and maybe things that you're processing out of game. I know on previous podcasts you definitely made a distinction about like maybe like using aspects of LARP not necessarily as therapy, but as a way to process things in your own way, because it gets very dangerous to attach those two things like too closely.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
like LARP is therapeutic.
It's therapeutic.
It's not a form of therapy, and like, but roleplay in itself can be used in therapy, and I think like these are all like perfect examples of like how LARP and like just roleplay in general can be like extremely helpful in like discovering who you are. Because like roleplay is used quite often like by therapists to like, well, let's roleplay through this scenario to see how it would work out, and like, you know, like it provides you like a long-term roleplay scenario to explore things like that. And I think that's like, part of it being a safe space is super important with it, because like if it's not a safe space, and then at that point, it's like, what's the difference between me trying it out here and trying it out in the real world? And like, that's why I think why it's so important for almost every LARP community I've been in. Like, why like all the people that I've like interacted with and such, like why it's so important to them all that it's like a safe space, and that everyone encourages that and like hopes that nobody should feel like alienated for making a roleplay choice. Like, sure, if you play a bad guy, there's going to be repercussions, but nobody's going to say out of character, like, you shouldn't be playing a bad guy. Like, or like, hey, you shouldn't be trying out these different things. Like, that was just like an example.
Like, I think one of the things that I think about is it's very powerful when you get into a scenario where you say, I am blah, whatever that blah is, whether it's a gender, a sexuality, a racial identity, and the other person responds with yes and can you fight, and yes and can you do magic, can you pick this lock? Because then once you treat it as something just normal, then it no longer becomes an issue. And because we are in a society where identities are a little bit political, in a way that I feel like I must declare that I am this. because there is a idea that in order for you to feel powerful, you must be validated. But I think what's interesting about LARP is that there are scenarios where you have to be validated even if other people don't validate you. And you have to find the power kind of within yourself. However, a safe community empowers that rather than limits that.
One of the things, because this just sort of came to mind as we were talking, one of the things I was realizing was, yes, I'm talking about these things that I have managed to kind of like find within myself and like find success in that exploration, but there are also some things that I still like have yet to attain, and I'm just going to kind of pose that question to the rest of you, and then afterwards I can say mine if we'd like that format.
Yeah, sure.
So is there something that you're still kind of like working towards, I suppose, that like you would like to attain? This is a role that you would like to fulfill, but you haven't quite gotten there yet. Do you have anything like that?
That's a really interesting question, because I think a lot of the things that I kind of have retained from LARP have been somewhat unintentional for myself. Camelia's choice of being outgoing was intentional, but a lot of the kind of other things that I've gained have been kind of unintentional. I guess it's a little bit less serious to some degree than some of the other ones that we've brought up, but kind of one of the other reasons I made this character, Camellia, who I'm talking about a lot because they're on my mind a lot lately, because I'm a very new player to Twin Mask, so I'm still very, very excited about this character, is that the Trahazi, the culture that my character's background is in, they're based loosely on various Eastern European cultures. My family is extremely Russian, but it's kind of been something I haven't been able to take part in. And playing this character, Camellia, has allowed me to kind of pull a lot from my cultural roots. And that's kind of something that I'm continually hoping to kind of continue to embrace and reclaim. I've actually been like trying to learn bits of Russian to pepper into my speech at game, and I've been learning a lot of cultural recipes for this character so I can cook them and bring them to our family feasts at game. That's like maybe a little bit less serious than some of the other ones, but
fantastic.
That's
honestly.
kind of something that I'm working with.
And I really wish that I had been able to try the kvass that you made. That looked fantastic. You will have to continue making these recipes.
Right.
I would like to try some traditional Russian recipes.
Come to family dinner. Make
Yes,
time.
Absolutely.
Your mother is waiting. Your non-binary mother, I should say.
Yes.
Hi, I'm also non-binary. I kind of buried the lead on that one.
Oh, no. That's all good. But yes. Taylor, Ryan, any thoughts?
I would say that like one thing that I've a thing that I have struggled with in the past, but I like continue to try to work on it. I think LARP is a great place to practice and like flex those muscles. Is like my empathic muscles, like practicing empathy, like towards like understanding other people's situations and like trying to, it's like impossible to know exactly why a person did a thing or how they were feeling in that moment or whatever, but like we can always like try to understand like what that person's going through and that person's story. And the thing is with LARP, like, it's like a concentrated, you're meeting and interacting like so many different, quote unquote people, like all of these characters that we've all created that all have these stories that we come from, and like trying to understand and treat each person, whether they're an NPC or a PC, as like a entity that has like a level of investment involved in the character, and trying to understand where that character comes from and like understand their story. I think that's a big deal, and I think like that's a thing that could help a lot of people. I think a lot of people in the world in general kind of like narrow in on their path and like their story, and like, well, if this didn't happen for this other person, like, what? It's not like if I wasn't bullied, like, I don't think that other person was bullied. Like, those people are always nice to me, and it's like, well, that's why you kind of have to try to put yourself in other people's shoes to understand like what they went through or are going through, or how people treat them, just because it's not your worldview.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. For me, I try to think which issue do I want to talk about, because, well, like, I'm always out there in terms of, like, when I say out there, I do talk about some of my issues openly. The fact that I deal with imposter syndrome a lot. I could be working on a lot of things and still feel like I'm not good enough. That's been an issue. I also have body dysmorphia issues for the longest time. I was growing up as a teenager and going into college. I was very morbidly obese, to the point where the doctor said, if you do not lose this weight, you will die before you hit 30. I was that obese, and so that pretty much affected and still plays in my brain now. Like, I struggle to think that I'm attractive all the time, and I have figured out how to present well in pictures. And part of it is also that I'm aware that I'm on camera and on media all the time. And I've learned to deal with these issues and understand that, I can't be 100% all the time. But then some of this stuff is in my head. Surprisingly, a lot of the LARP photography works. So I'm always very, very happy when I look good in the picture. But occasionally, I will look at a picture and pick myself apart and go, "Oh my God, I look horrible," and my brain starts spiraling, and I have to kind of go, "Wait, stop." That's been I've never really talked about that openly, about my body dysmorphia. I just kind of take it one day at a time. But I get really enthusiastic if I see a good picture, and I have to remember that people. It's not that people are like kind to me because I think that they're lying. I have to remember that everybody has qualities that are attractive to others, and someone said it best. That said, if you're not attracted to yourself, it just means you're not your own type, but you are attractive to other people. And a lot of it does stem from having an awesome personality and doing cool stuff.
Thank you for sharing that.
I have a follow-up question that for you, Ryan, is that you mentioned to us before we started recording that about one of your characters who's kind of like a suave, like, smooth talker, and like has that character helped you at all with any of those, with either of those like issues, or do you feel that like that character has helped you be more confident with those things in your real life as well, or I guess that's my let us know about that.
Yeah, so long time ago when I played a character named Virgo Reese, so I had played another character named Cesar that died because he was diablerized, and so I was really shocked when Casey, who played a very powerful Bruja, said, "I want you to play my child." I'm like, "That's awesome," but I didn't know what concept to play, so I thought, okay, what if I played a smarter, sexier, more sophisticated version of myself? So that meant going into thrift stores, because I didn't have a lot of money at the time, and just buying really, really nice clothes, or really attractive clothes, and then presenting myself in that way, and wearing cologne. Learn to dab and not overspray. And so I started to walk into game. I eventually owned a 3-piece leather suit.
Ooh.
and just decided to just play someone described me, rest his soul, like Morton said, you are the JFK Jr. of Bruja. And
what a compliment.
That was a huge compliment. And so I started to come in and also just own my sexuality. It's like I could sleep with whoever I slept with. Also, I had problems with dating, and like after that, didn't have problems anymore. Because after a while, like that wish fulfillment ended up being so powerful that I carried all that stuff. It bled into real life, and it was like, oh, I can actually dress better than wearing con shirts, because that's all I did in the past. But LARP has definitely improved that aspect of my life.
That's awesome.
I notice we're nearing our destination.
Yes,
but I wanted to at least kind of follow it up with if you have any advice for LARPers out there that maybe are like just starting out and just sort of starting out with experimenting with characters and personalities and just things that they're not used to in real life but they'd like to try on. Do you have any advice at all?
I would say with your very first character, figure out where you fit into the world set of the game first, so that you understand how that world functions, and then over time add that layer of the personality. Because if you're trying to go for exploration first without understanding the game world, you'll get frustrated. And then kind of like in the back of your mind, tuck that in, and then as you understand the game, it's like, okay, now this is stuff that I remember. Now this is stuff that I can reveal to others now that I trust you. Which also leads into, like, the sanctuary of game. Like, does that game feel safe enough that I can explore that?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do it as your first thing, but have those layers, like, buried beneath. As the layers peel off, you can play with those identities or those thoughts.
I guess, like, so my advice, which would also help with the pressure of trying to get acclimated to a new game, is like, if it is your first time and you are looking to explore, or even if you've LARPed before, but you are looking to explore a new thing for the first time about yourself, you can always ask for help. And I think that, like, communication and, like, talking to your friends and people that you care about and care about you is super important in everyone's life, and that even though it can be hard to open up to someone, that having someone to help you through that experience, even if, like, maybe they haven't been through what you've been through, having someone to talk to about what you're experiencing and what you're going through, and like, and what you're trying, and like what worked or what didn't work or how you felt about it, like all those things are going to help take some of the pressure off of you, especially if, like, you're new to LARPing as well, or new to a game. Like, just having someone to help, and so you're not there just trying to figure it all out yourself. I'm sure there's plenty of people who have gone through what you have already gone through, or something similar, who would be more than willing to, like, talk you through it.
How far are we from game site right now?
Less than 5 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
Exactly.
3 minutes. Wow.
There's a light up here. It'll probably take out of it.
I was going to quickly say, and this is advice that you have given before on the podcast, I believe, because I do listen to your podcast, is using NPCs to try on different personalities or different just things in general that you just like to temporarily fiddle with and see, like, oh, I really liked being that, like, fancy, confident persona, like wearing this waistcoat and seeming like the nobleman of the party.
Or like, I liked putting on a dress and people telling me I'm pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even like, I liked doing an accent for my character.
Yeah. That's even lower stakes, because it's not like your own character that you're fiddling with. It's an NPC that you're working with within the realms of like maybe the mod that you're working on. But that's what first came to mind when I was asking about that.
Man, that's very smart advice.
That is very
great,
good
yeah.
advice.
Oh well, thank you.
We are nearly here at the site. I also wanted to say hi to and miss like Sin and Kai, although I'm going to see Kai in a few minutes.
We're about to see Kai.
You're about to see Kai.
About to see
so,
Kai.
want to say love you guys. And where can people find you on the social medias if you want to offer that? We'll start with Taylor.
The best place is probably on Instagram. It's Frosty, FROSTTEA. You probably see a bunch of pictures of me at like Wasteland and LARP and stuff, and I'm a production designer, so I post sets that I build on there as well.
Shell.
You can find me on Instagram at Pagsy Magoo. That's PAGSYMAGOO. I will try and post more on there. I've been wanting to post. I post costuming and some prop making on there. So yeah.
Alex.
You can find me also on Instagram. We're a good party here. At Spectre Spark. That's Spectre like a ghost and spark like electricity.
Perfect.
That's a neat handle.
Thank you.
You can find me on social media under Ryan Omega, and on Twitter under Ryan OMGA, and on Tuesday evenings on Scabby Rooster, where I am the storyteller of the original LARP Twitch game Blank Slate. So that would be twitch.tv/Scabby Rooster for the show Blank Slate. Thank you for joining us on our podcast. Especially thanks to all the Patreon supporters. Until next time, bye!
Bye!